Hey Adventures, so today is going to be my wrap up for the month of September, I believe. Yes, September, that was last month. I am a week behind, and then I don't know when it will end up coming out, but I also need to do a quarter for TBR or MBR rather. And I don't know exactly, hopefully that'll be out this month. I don't know if I'm going to put it out next week or if I'm going to put it out in 2 weeks because I may want to stick another review in between. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to play a little bit of catch up. But eventually I will be back on schedule with things, and for now let's just do my September wrap up real quick. I didn't physically I didn't finish any books physically, but I will talk about the books that I finished on audio because I listened to several books on audio. All right, let's get into this. Hopefully this won't take very long. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't take very long, but let's go. So first off, I finished my reread of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which is book 4 of the Harry Potter series. This one, I've been waiting for the audiobook since whenever I read book 3 in, when was it? I read book 3 back in like February, or was it? No, it was in January I read book 3. And so it's been a while that I've been waiting on the audiobook. It came right as I was leaving and didn't have time to listen to it, and so I pushed off my hold until I got back, until like the 1st of August or something like that, or the 31st, the 1st of September or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And now then I listened to the audiobook and reread this one. What are my thoughts? I know with the previous 3 books in the series, they've been getting progressively better each book, better than I remembered. Book 1, then book 2 I liked better, and book 3 I liked better than the other one. Book 4 I think is about in the same place as it was when I first read it, and that's right about in the middle of the series. It's basically book 4 place 4 for me. I don't know if it's better than book 3 or on par with book 3, but it's right around where book 3 is sitting for me at the moment. There's a lot of things in it that I really like, but there's some things in it that I specifically have noted that the movie, I like the way that the movie adapts it, and I like the way that the movie does it better. Once I get to my review of Goblet of Fire, then I will talk more about my thoughts on it, but for now that's what I'm going to say. So the next book I read is Return of the Knights by Gregory Contaxis, I believe the author is, and this is one that I actually read or listened to the vast majority of it in August, in August. But then I was listening to it at such a high speed, trying to finish it before the end of August, that I really was getting absolutely nothing from it. And so I wanted to re-listen to it with the ability to just sit and listen to the book and see what I think of the book and actually consume the story rather than just mark it off as having been read for the month. Because I wanted to also, it's a self-pub author. I want to support self-pub authors as much as I can, and in the best way that I can. How I can do that is by actually reading and actually giving a good review of the book. And so I wanted to do that with Return of the Knights. And so I decided, okay, I'm not gonna keep blasting through this book because I'm not understanding it. And so I shut it off, and I decided to come back and actually restart from the beginning of the story so that I could go listen to the whole story. And my thoughts on the story as a whole are basically that it was solid. It's not the best book I've ever read. It's not the worst book I've ever read by any means. It was a really solid fantasy book. I have a couple things about it that I'm like, why did he choose to include that? That seems unnecessary. It doesn't seem like it's adding to or benefiting the story in any way, shape, or form. And so there's a couple things like that. But for the most part, it was a solid fantasy book. But I don't have any real... I enjoyed my time listening to it. I enjoyed the story that was being told. But I don't have any real strong desire to continue on with the series. I know there's other books in the series. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just, at the same time, I'm not dying to read the next one. And that's really about all that I have to say about this. I know a lot of people... So when in August, when we were doing I don't remember, whatever the readathon was that was being hosted by... or on the Keymark Discord by AR Witham, and the 3 hosts that they had there, I participated in that, and my group, our group book was this Return of the Knights, and so a whole bunch of people were reading it that month, and that's why I decided to try and read it that month as well, and it didn't work out. But anyways, a lot of people were saying, yeah, it's a decent book. I don't really care if I continue with the series, and that's kind of where I fell with it as well. But the other thing that they were saying that I found interesting, and I actually also think to be the case, is that it could be a solid starting point for somebody who's just getting into epic fantasy, who doesn't really know the genre that well, who's just trying to explore the genre a little bit and get to know it. And as such, I actually do think that it has a very beneficial place in the reading community and in the epic fantasy community. So I would probably recommend it to people for that, but I would also have to know who it is that I'm recommending it to, because I could tailor it a little bit more, tailor that as a recommendation to specific people more than everybody. But anyways, all right, that's plenty about Return of the Night. So we'll have a review of that once I get to it. I've got several other books that I need to review first. The next book that I read was Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead, and this is one that I started physically reading, and I don't remember how far into it I got. It's about page 100 or something like that. I think it was about page 15, chapter 10 of the first book, or the first part of Taliesin. And I had just kind of gotten in, like, it took me about that long to get interested in the book, about the first 100 pages to really get interested in the book. I didn't have a ton of time to read up until that point, and so it was just kind of whenever I had a chance, I would sit and read a couple pages or a chapter or something like that. And it was slow to start, and I wasn't quite enjoying it yet, but I got to that chapter 10, which I didn't read, so I read through chapter 9, and I just wasn't getting back to it in a timely manner, and so I said, okay, let's see if I can get the audiobook. The audiobook was available on Audible for free, the first book was, and so I was like, that's perfect. I'll sit through this and finish up this book, and we'll see what happens from there. I don't own book 2 yet, so I'll read Taliesin and then see what I think. So I quite actually ended up enjoying Taliesin quite a bit. The character of Taliesin is really cool. One of the characters, probably my favorite character that I've read, or favorite new to me character that I've read in a while. And like the world, I like, of course, it's Arthurian, or it's pre-Arthurian, and I like the world. I like the incorporation of the Atlantis myth and how that is pulled into this story and used in this series. And I really appreciated that part, although I was fairly bored with those parts of the story. But anyways, I was continuing, I read this book and I got to the end, and I was waiting I had 2 other books on hold, which were Words of Radiance was one of them, and the other one is Wheel of Time, book 11, I think, which I can't remember what it's called. And so they're both sitting on hold. They hadn't come yet, and so I was like, all right, whatever. I don't know they're not here yet. I don't know what to read. And I decided to pick up book 2. So I also listened to book 2 is Merlin, and again, enjoyed it quite a bit. It's slow to start, but by the end it hits rather hard, and I really enjoyed book 2 as well. So I read book 1 and enjoyed it, moved on immediately to the same day, I think, pretty much, and read book 2. After book 2, I was hoping, okay, well, maybe one of my audiobooks will be available from the library at that point. They weren't. And so I was thinking, well, now what am I gonna do? And so I was like, okay, let's read book 3. And so I listened to book 3, which is Arthur. And so I read Taliesin and Merlin and Arthur, and I got to the end of Arthur, and still my other 2 books weren't available from the library yet. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna binge the entire Pendragon series, the entire Pendragon cycle series. And so I then moved on and listened to Pendragon, which is book 4 in the series. And after Pendragon, I listened to Grail, but ended up finishing Grail in October, so I won't talk about Grail at this point. However, I did read books 1 through 4 in the series completely in September. Pendragon is my least favorite of the series, I believe, with Arthur being, I don't know. I don't know where I would put Arthur, but I know Taliesin is my favorite, with Merlin being 2, and then Pendragon being number 5 in terms of my ranking of the series. I really enjoyed the series as a whole. They're all somewhere in the 4-star range. Taliesin and Merlin are up at the higher end of 4-star, whereas Pendragon's down at the very bottom, like a 4.0 star type thing, whereas Taliesin would be like a 4.85 or something like that. So I really enjoyed the series, and it was great to be back in some Arthurian literature. I've read more Arthurian literature this year than I was expecting to, and it's great. I am very much enjoying my time in the Arthurian genre again. And they focus a lot on the kind of Christianity coming into the British Isles and pushing out things like the Druidic culture and these other religions and cults and everything that are in the British Isles at these times. And so, and of course, King Arthur rising and the kingdom of Camelot and whatever they call it, the Kingdom of Summer is what they call it in the series. And the way that Law had approached the series is very different than what I'd read, but felt very in line with the Arthurian myth, and it felt very faithful to the Arthurian myth and story as a whole, in a way that I felt was missing from The Once and Future King, and even from The Buried Giant, which I read at the beginning of this year. And so it was really nice to come into this series and read something that was so distinctly Christian, but at the same time, not preachy, but at the same time, it was just yes, it was Christian, but it was also very Arthurian. And that combination worked better than I was expecting, partly because of the story that was being told and the way that he was telling the story. But yeah, I had a great time with the series. I'll talk more about Grail next month when I do my wrap up for October. And for now, I will leave it at that. Only read, 6 books on audio, with basically no physical reading, doing a little bit of e-reading because I have a book that I am finishing that I should be finished with fairly soon here. By the time you see this, I should be finished with it, but that'll be in my October wrap up. Anyway, so I listened to 6 books in September and didn't really get much physical reading done, but I did get a little bit done, and it was just really good to be able to sit down and do some listen to some audiobooks after not having been able to for 6 months. So anyways, that is my wrap up for the month of September. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.